I believed my marriage was finally becoming stable. That belief carried me through every unpaid bill, every extra shift, and every promise that better days were coming. Our 5th anniversary wasn't going to be fancy, but I wanted it to remind Olivia that love still mattered. I spent the afternoon setting a small table in our favorite neighborhood restaurant. A single candle stood between 2 plates, and I smiled when I looked at the tiny bouquet I had bought with the last cash in my wallet. I checked my phone again. No message. No call. I whispered, "Please don't be late tonight." The waiter walked over. "Would you like to order while you wait, sir?" I forced a smile. "No. My wife should be here soon." 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Finally, the restaurant door opened. Olivia walked inside. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. She wore a designer dress I had never seen before. A diamond necklace rested around her neck, and her handbag probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. I stood up. "You look amazing." She barely smiled. "Thanks." I pulled out her chair. "Happy anniversary." She sat down without looking at me. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to." Silence settled between us. I tried again. "I know things have been hard lately, Liv. I'm working overtime now. Maybe next year we'll finally take that beach vacation you've always wanted." She stared at the candle instead of me. "Ethan." Her voice sounded distant. "We need to talk." My stomach tightened. "Is everything okay?" She sighed. "No." I reached across the table. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." She slowly pulled her hand away. "No, we won't." Those 4 words hit harder than any punch. "What do you mean?" She looked directly into my eyes for the first time that evening. "I'm leaving you." Everything around me became strangely quiet. I laughed nervously. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." I searched her face, hoping to find some sign that this was a cruel prank. There was nothing. I whispered, "Why?" She folded her hands. "Because I'm tired." "Tired of what?" "Tired of struggling. We've struggled before. And I'm done struggling." I leaned forward. "I know money is tight, but things are getting better." She shook her head. "No, Ethan. They're not." "They will." "When?" I opened my mouth. No answer came. She continued. "I've spent years waiting for your promotions, your plans, your dreams. I've been trying." "I know. Then why are you giving up on us?" She looked away. "Because someone else showed me the life I've always wanted." My heartbeat stopped. "What did you just say?" "I met someone." The words echoed inside my head. You met someone?" "Yes." "Who?" She took a slow breath. "Victor Langston." I frowned. "The billionaire?" "Yes." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're serious?" "I am." "How long has this been happening?" She hesitated only a second. "Several months." "Months?" "While I worked overtime. While I skipped lunches to save money. While I believed we were fighting for our future together." I felt sick. "You've been lying to me." "I didn't know how to tell you." "So you kept pretending?" "I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a bitter laugh. "And this doesn't hurt." She lowered her eyes. "I never planned for it to happen." "You planned enough to keep seeing him." She didn't answer. I clenched my fists under the table. "Do you love him?" She stayed silent. "Answer me." "Yes." The single word shattered something inside me. "What about me?" "I cared about you." "Cared?" She nodded slowly. "But love isn't enough anymore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We built a life together. A small life. It was ours. It wasn't the life I wanted. So money matters more than I do." "It isn't only money." "Then what is it?" "He makes me feel safe." I stared at her. "I've spent years trying to protect you." "I know. I worked every weekend." "I know. I sacrificed everything." "I know. Then how can you sit here and tell me another man makes you feel safer?" She whispered, "Because I don't have to worry anymore." I looked down at my worn jacket. The sleeves were faded. The watch on my wrist had stopped working weeks ago. For the first time, I saw myself through her eyes. Not as a husband. As a failure. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So, that's it." She slowly removed her wedding ring. The tiny circle of gold caught the candlelight before she placed it on the table between us. I'm sorry. I stared at the ring without touching it. 5 years. Reduced to one quiet sound against a wooden table. She stood. I hope one day you understand. I finally looked up. No. My voice barely came out. I don't think I ever will. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the exit. I wanted to run after her. I wanted to beg. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there, unable to move, watching the woman I loved disappear through the restaurant door. Only then did I realize the anniversary dinner had never been meant to celebrate our marriage. It had been planned to bury it. The apartment felt colder after Olivia left. Not because the weather had changed. Because every corner still carried a memory of her. I unlocked the door after work, tossed my keys onto the table, and waited to hear her voice. Silence answered instead. I forced myself to laugh. You're pathetic, Ethan. I opened the refrigerator. Half a loaf of bread. A carton of milk. Nothing else. I closed the door and sat on the couch. Her favorite blanket was still folded beside me. I picked it up, then immediately threw it across the room. No, I muttered. She's gone. The words didn't feel real. Days turned into weeks. I barely slept. Every night I replayed the anniversary dinner in my head. I'm leaving you. I love him. Love isn't enough anymore. Those sentences followed me everywhere. One morning my phone rang. Hello? Ethan? It was Daniel. You sound terrible. I'm fine. You always say that when you're falling apart. I sighed. What do you want? I'm outside. I looked through the window. His old pickup truck was parked across the street. You drove all the way here. Open the door. A minute later he walked inside carrying 2 bags of groceries. I frowned. You didn't have to do that. I know. Then why did you? Because if I didn't, you'd probably eat crackers for another week. I smiled for the first time in days. He looked around the apartment. You haven't cleaned. I haven't felt like it. You haven't shaved either. I noticed. Daniel crossed his arms. You're letting her win. I'm not trying to compete. You don't have to compete. Then what am I supposed to do? Stand up. I looked away. I don't know how. He sat beside me. You remember college? Yeah. You failed your first accounting exam. I remember. What did you say? I said maybe I wasn't smart enough. And what happened? You forced me to study every night. He laughed. And then? I finished at the top of the class. Daniel pointed at me. Exactly. This isn't an exam. No. It's worse. Maybe. So stop pretending the story is over. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A social media notification. I almost ignored it. Daniel picked up my phone. You still follow Olivia? I forgot. He looked at the screen. His smile disappeared. I'm sorry. What? He silently handed me the phone. There she was. Standing beside Victor Langston on a private yacht. She wore another expensive dress. Victor wrapped his arm around her waist while photographers surrounded them. The caption read, "New beginnings deserve beautiful sunsets." I stared at the picture until everything became blurry. Daniel reached for the phone. Don't. I need to see it. No, you don't. I need to remind myself why she left. He gently took the phone away. You need to remind yourself why you're staying alive. His words hit me harder than the picture. That night I couldn't sleep again. The next morning my phone rang from an unknown number. Mr. Carter? Speaking. My name is Grace Miller. I think you have the wrong number. I don't. I'm calling about a financial report you wrote 3 years ago. I frowned. What report? The restructuring proposal for Carter Manufacturing. I never published it. I know. How did you get it? It crossed my desk during a merger review. I sat up. You actually read it? I did. And? It was brilliant. I laughed bitterly. You must have called the wrong Ethan. No. You analyzed problems most senior consultants completely missed. I didn't know what to say. Grace continued. Our firm needs someone for a temporary consulting project. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. May I ask why? Because you deserve someone better. I disagree. You don't know me. I know your work. My life is a mess. I'm hiring your mind, not your marriage. Her words caught me off guard. I still can't. Think about it. I don't need time. You do. She paused. My assistant will email the details. Whether you accept is your decision. The call ended. I stared at the phone. Daniel looked at me. Who was it? I told him everything. When I finished, he smiled. So what? You're taking it. I'm absolutely not. Why? I've forgotten how to believe in myself. He leaned closer. No. What? You've forgotten how to believe the lies you tell yourself. I blinked. You think you're broken. I am. No. I lost everything. You lost someone who didn't value you. That's different. It is. He stood and grabbed my jacket. Come on. Where? We're going for coffee. I'm not in the mood. I wasn't asking. An hour later we sat in a small cafe. Daniel pushed the printed email toward me. Read the salary. My eyes widened. That's impossible. It isn't. They're offering me this. They're investing in you. I stayed quiet. Daniel smiled. You spent years believing your value depended on one person's opinion. I looked out the window. People walked past, laughing, arguing, living. Life hadn't stopped. Only mine had. Daniel spoke softly. Ethan. Yeah? Don't let the woman who walked away decide the man you become. I looked at the email one more time. Then I picked up the pen lying on the table. I still don't know if I'm ready. You never will be. I signed the acceptance form anyway. As I handed it back to Daniel, I took my first real breath since the night Olivia left. For the first time, I wasn't choosing my marriage. I was choosing my future. Signing the consulting contract should have made me feel excited. Instead, I felt terrified. I stood outside the glass office building, staring at my reflection. I barely recognized the man looking back at me. My suit was old. My confidence was even older. I whispered, "Don't embarrass yourself." Then I walked inside. A receptionist smiled. "Good morning. You must be Ethan Carter." "Yes. Ms. Grace Miller is expecting you." A few minutes later, I stepped into Grace's office. She stood and shook my hand. "I'm glad you came." "I almost didn't." She smiled. "I know." "How?" "People who lose confidence always hesitate before opening new doors." I looked down. I didn't lose only my confidence. I've read enough about people to know that. She handed me a folder. "This is your first project." I opened it. The numbers covered dozens of pages. "This company is losing millions," I said. "Exactly. You want me to fix it?" "I want you to tell me the truth." "What if the truth isn't what the client wants to hear?" Grace leaned back. "Then they're paying the right person." For the next 2 weeks, I buried myself in reports, meetings, and financial statements. Every morning Grace asked the same question. "What do you think?" At first, I answered carefully. "I think this investment is risky." "Why?" "The numbers don't support it." "Good. Keep going." Each conversation pushed me harder. One afternoon she looked at my report and smiled. "You stopped apologizing." I blinked. "What?" "You used to say, 'Maybe I'm wrong.'" I laughed quietly. "I did. You don't say that anymore." "I guess I trust my work now." "No." She shook her head. "You trust yourself." Those words stayed with me all day. A month later, Grace walked into my office. "Pack your bag." "Why?" "We're flying to Chicago." "For what?" "An international investment conference." I froze. I've never spoken at a conference. "You won't be speaking." I relaxed. "You'll be answering questions." I frowned. "That's worse." She laughed. "You'll survive." The conference hall was filled with executives wearing expensive suits. For a moment, I felt like I didn't belong. I whispered to Grace, "Everyone here looks important." She answered without looking at me. "They're just people." "What if I say something stupid?" "Then say something honest." The first discussion ended better than I expected. Several executives complimented my analysis. As I stepped away from the stage, an older gentleman approached me. "Mr. Carter?" Yes? I'm Henry Dawson. I recognized the name immediately. He owned one of the largest investment firms in the country. It's an honor to meet you, sir. He smiled warmly. The honor is mine. I looked surprised. I've been reading your reports. My reports. Grace shared them with me. I looked toward Grace. She simply smiled from across the room. Henry continued. Most analysts chase numbers. I suppose. You chase truth. I just follow the evidence. Exactly. He folded his arms. Would you have approved today's investment proposal? No. Why? The profit looked attractive. It did. So why refuse? Because the risks were hidden. Henry's smile grew wider. Most people ignored that. I couldn't. Why not? Because investors trust us. He nodded slowly. That's the answer I hoped to hear. Before leaving, he handed me his business card. If you ever want a bigger challenge, call me. I stared at the card long after he disappeared. Grace walked over. Congratulations. For what? You just impressed one of the hardest men in business. I was just answering questions. Exactly. A week later my phone rang. Mr. Carter? This is Ethan. This is Henry Dawson. I immediately stood up. Good afternoon, sir. I'll keep this simple. I'm listening. I'd like you to join my company. I couldn't speak. Ethan? Sorry? I wasn't expecting this. I know. I'm honored. The position comes with more responsibility. I'm willing to work. I know you are. The salary. Henry laughed. Forget the salary. I can't. I'm hiring your character. Those words reminded me of something Daniel once said. Your value isn't decided by one person's opinion. I accepted the offer. My first weeks at Dawson Global Investments changed everything. The office overlooked the city skyline. The projects were larger. The decisions carried real consequences. Instead of fear, I felt purpose. Henry invited me into his office almost every afternoon. He never gave long speeches. Instead, he asked questions. What would you do? Why? What are we missing? Little by little, I stopped waiting for permission before speaking. One afternoon Henry nodded after hearing my recommendation. Approve it. That's all? You've already convinced me. I smiled. I used to think confidence meant never doubting yourself. Henry shook his head. No. What is it then? It's doing the right thing even when doubt is standing beside you. His words stayed with me. Life outside work slowly changed too. I stopped checking Olivia's social media every night. Sometimes I still wondered if she ever thought about me. Sometimes I remembered the way she smiled before everything fell apart. The memories still hurt. But they no longer controlled me. One evening Daniel called. You sound different. In a good way. The old Ethan is coming back. I smiled. No. What? I think someone better is showing up. Daniel laughed. I've been waiting to hear you say that. A few months later, Henry called me into the boardroom. Several executives were already waiting. He placed a thick folder in front of me. Ethan. Yes, sir? Starting today, you'll oversee several of our largest corporate investment projects. I looked around the room. Me? Henry nodded. I trust your judgment. The other executive smiled. I slowly opened the folder, unaware that the decisions inside it would soon cross paths with the two people who had once destroyed my entire world. Months passed faster than I expected. The man who once counted every dollar for groceries was now sitting in boardrooms where people discussed investments worth hundreds of millions. Sometimes I still looked around and wondered if I truly belonged there. One morning Henry called me into his office. Ethan, do you have a minute? Of course. There's someone I want you to meet. I followed him to a private conference room. A young woman stood beside the window, reading a report. She looked up and smiled. Dad, is this him? Henry nodded. Ethan Carter, meet my daughter, Emma. I shook her hand. It's nice to meet you. You too, she replied warmly. I've heard a lot about you. I laughed. I hope only good things. Emma smiled. My father doesn't praise people often. When he does, I pay attention. Henry cleared his throat. Emma oversees our community investment projects. You'll be working together from time to time. I'll do my best. I know you will, Henry said before leaving us alone. Emma looked at the report in my hands. So, where do you think I made a mistake? I raised an eyebrow. You assume there is one? She laughed. There always is. I spent a few minutes reviewing the numbers. Finally I pointed to one page. This charity project is wonderful, but the administrative costs are too high. She studied it. You caught that in less than 5 minutes. I've learned to look where most people don't. She smiled. I think we're going to work well together. For the first time in years, talking to someone felt easy. There were no games. No hidden meaning. Just honesty. Over the following weeks we met often. Sometimes we discussed business. Sometimes we talked over coffee. She never asked about my past until one afternoon. You wear a wedding ring. I looked down. The ring was still on my finger. I had forgotten it was there. I guess I do. You don't have to answer if it's painful. I slowly removed the ring. My wife left me. Emma stayed quiet. I'm sorry. So was I. What happened? She chose someone richer. Emma looked at me for several seconds. Then she was blind. I smiled faintly. I used to think the same thing about myself. She shook her head. No. What? Anyone willing to love through hard times isn't weak. Her words stayed with me long after she left. That evening Daniel called. How's the new job? Busy. Only busy. I met someone. His voice immediately changed. Really? Calm down. I'm just asking. She's Henry's daughter. Daniel laughed loudly. So the boss already trusts you with his daughter? It's not like that. Yet. I rolled my eyes. We're co-workers. For now. I couldn't stop smiling after the call ended. At the same time, another story was unfolding. Every morning the business news filled our office screens. Victor Langston's company was making headlines. Not for success. For losses. During one executive meeting Henry looked toward me. Ethan. Yes? What do you think about Langston Holdings? I studied the financial reports. The debt is growing. What else? They are hiding liquidity problems. Henry nodded. Anything more? Someone inside approved investments that never should have happened. Henry smiled. I reached the same conclusion. Another executive spoke. The approvals came from their CFO, Michael Reed. Henry folded his arms. Keep watching them. After the meeting ended, I couldn't stop thinking about Olivia. Was she seeing all this? Did she know what was happening? Or was she still living inside the dream she chose over our marriage? 2 days later my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello? Ethan. I recognized the voice immediately. Sarah? Yeah. It's been a long time. I know. What do you need? She stayed silent. Finally she whispered. I owe you an apology. For what? I knew Olivia was seeing Victor. My grip tightened around the phone. You knew? I found out months before she left. And you said nothing? I wanted to. So why didn't you? She begged me not to. I closed my eyes. I thought she would come to her senses. She didn't. I'm sorry. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally I asked. Why are you telling me now? Because I can't carry the guilt anymore. I took a deep breath. I was angry for a long time. I know. But not anymore. You're not angry? No. You should be. I was. What changed? I realized revenge wouldn't heal me. Sarah quietly cried. I never deserved your kindness. This isn't kindness. What is it? It's letting go. She thanked me before ending the call. I placed my phone on the desk and stared out the window. Emma walked into my office. You okay? Yeah. You don't sound convinced. I just closed an old chapter. She nodded. Sometimes that's the hardest victory. Later that afternoon Henry called another executive meeting. He placed a thick confidential file on the table. Ladies and gentlemen. Everyone looked at him. Our company is preparing the largest acquisition of this year. The room became completely silent. Henry continued. The target corporation has suffered major financial damage. An executive asked. Who owns it? Henry smiled slightly. We'll reveal that after the final investigation. He turned toward me. Ethan, I want you leading the financial review. I'd be honored. As I picked up the file, I had no idea that the struggling company hidden behind those documents belonged to the very man who had taken everything from me. Nor did I realize fate was quietly preparing a reunion none of us would ever forget. The confidential file stayed on my desk for 3 days before the legal team gave me permission to open it. I closed my office door, took a deep breath, then opened the folder. The first page showed years of financial statements. The second revealed unpaid debts. The third listed emergency loans. Everything pointed toward one conclusion. The company was collapsing. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Come in." Emma stepped inside. "You've been in here all morning." I didn't even notice. She placed a cup of coffee on my desk. "You forgot this too." I smiled. "Thanks." She looked at the file. "Anything interesting?" "I can't discuss the details." "I know." She laughed. I had to try. After she left, I continued reading. Every report led back to one name. Langston Holdings. My heart skipped a beat. Victor. I stared at the page for several seconds. Out of hundreds of companies in the country, it had to be his. I leaned back in my chair. So this is how life works. A few minutes later Henry called me. "My office. Now." I carried the file upstairs. Henry looked at me carefully. "You've seen the owner's name?" "Yes." "Does it change your recommendation?" I answered immediately. "No." "Are you sure?" "My personal history has nothing to do with my professional responsibility." Henry smiled. "That's exactly why you're leading this deal." "When do negotiations begin?" "Tomorrow morning." The next day our legal team gathered inside the main conference room. Everyone reviewed their notes quietly. Henry walked over to me. "Remember one thing." "I'm listening." "Today you're not someone's former husband." I nodded. "You're representing this company." "I understand." The conference room doors opened. Several executives entered first. Lawyers followed behind them. Then Victor Langston walked inside. He looked older. The confidence I remembered had been replaced by exhaustion. His eyes met mine. He stopped walking. "Ethan?" The room became silent. Before I could answer, another person entered. "Olivia." She looked at me. The color disappeared from her face. She whispered, "No." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Henry finally broke the silence. "Please take your seats." Victor slowly sat across from me. Olivia remained beside him, unable to stop staring. Victor cleared his throat. "I didn't know you worked here." I calmly replied, "I do." He forced a smile. "You've done well." "Thank you." Olivia finally spoke. "Ethan." I looked at her. "Good morning." That was all. No anger. No accusation. Only professionalism. The lawyers began discussing the acquisition. Numbers filled the room. Debt. Assets. Liabilities. Future obligations. After an hour Victor leaned forward. "Those conditions are too strict." I answered calmly. "They protect our shareholders. We need more flexibility. Our responsibility isn't to rescue poor decisions." Victor frowned. "You know this company can recover." "I know recovery requires accountability." He looked frustrated. "You've changed." "So have you." Olivia stayed silent. She watched every word we exchanged. Eventually Victor pushed another proposal across the table. "We need a larger operating budget." I reviewed the document. Then closed it. "No." His eyebrows rose. "No? It doesn't benefit our company." "You have the authority to approve it." "I also have the responsibility to reject it." Henry watched quietly without interrupting. Victor tried again. "Ethan, let's be reasonable." "I am." "Our employees depend on this." "So do ours." "This isn't personal." "I agree." "Then approve it." "I won't." Silence filled the room again. One attorney leaned toward Victor and whispered something. Victor rubbed his forehead. "What if we reduce the request?" "I'll review the numbers." The revised proposal arrived 10 minutes later. I studied every page carefully. Finally I signed one section. Rejected another. Approved 2 more. Then returned the documents. Victor looked surprised. "You approved part of it." "The parts that made financial sense." "And the rest?" I won't risk my company's future. For the first time, I realized something. I wasn't sitting there to defeat Victor. I was simply doing my job. The meeting paused for lunch. As I walked into the hallway, someone called my name. Ethan. I turned around. Olivia stood alone. I only need 5 minutes. I'm expected back inside. Please. I looked at my watch. You have 3. She took a deep breath. I never imagined. I know. I heard about your success. I've been working. She looked down. I didn't expect to see you like this. People change. I can see that. She hesitated. You look happy. I found peace. I hurt you. You did. I'm sorry. I nodded once. Thank you. She looked confused. That's it. What else should I say? Aren't you angry? I was. And now? I have responsibilities waiting inside that room. She wiped away a tear. You really moved on. I answered honestly. I'm still healing. Before she could speak again, the meeting resumed. The afternoon negotiations lasted 4 more hours. Every clause was examined. Every condition debated. Near the end, Henry looked toward me. Ethan. Yes? Final approval belongs to you. Every eye in the room turned toward me. Including Olivia's. Including Victor's. I opened the final agreement. Read every page once more. Then picked up my pen. Years ago, I would have signed anything just to keep my marriage alive. Today, I signed only what was fair. Nothing more. Nothing less. My signature echoed louder than any speech. Victor slowly read the completed agreement. His shoulders dropped. He looked at his legal team. We have no choice. One lawyer quietly nodded. Victor picked up his pen. With visible hesitation, he signed beneath my name. As the documents were collected, Olivia looked at me one last time. This time her eyes held something I had never seen before. Not pride. Not love. Not pity. Regret. Deep, undeniable regret. I simply stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out of the room. For years, she had believed I would never become someone important. Now, without raising my voice or seeking revenge, I had become the man whose signature decided the future of the billionaire she once believed could never fail. The acquisition was finalized 2 weeks later. Life inside our company quickly returned to normal. At least, it looked normal from the outside. Inside my office, new reports arrived every morning, and almost every report carried the same name. Langston Holdings. The financial situation was getting worse. One afternoon, Henry walked in holding a newspaper. He placed it on my desk. Have you seen today's headline? I looked down. Federal investigators opened fraud case against Langston Holdings. I slowly folded the paper. So it has finally started. Henry nodded. The evidence is serious. What kind of evidence? Hidden debts. False reports. Suspicious transfers. I remained quiet. Henry studied my face. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. You expected this? I expected the truth to catch up eventually. Henry smiled faintly. It usually does. Over the next month, every news channel talked about Victor. Government investigators searched company records. Major investors pulled out. Banks demanded immediate repayment of loans. Employees began resigning. The empire that once looked untouchable was falling apart one piece at a time. Daniel called me one evening. Have you been watching the news? A little. Victor is everywhere. I know. Does it feel good? I looked out the window before answering. No. He sounded surprised. Really? I wanted justice. And? This isn't making me happy. Daniel stayed silent. Finally he asked. So what are you feeling? I answered honestly. Relief. A week later another headline appeared. CFO Michael Reed accused of corporate fraud. Internal emails had been uncovered. Fake financial statements. Secret accounts. Illegal transactions. Michael had spent years hiding losses while convincing Victor everything was under control. Victor publicly denied knowing anything. Few people believed him. One morning my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered. Hello? Ethan. I froze. Olivia. What do you want? Can we talk? I'm working. Please. There isn't anything left to say. There is. I closed my eyes. Olivia. I only need 10 minutes. No. The line stayed quiet. Then she whispered. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't answer. I know you don't owe me anything. You're right. I just want one conversation. I can't. Please. I took a slow breath. I'm sorry. Then I ended the call. For several minutes I simply stared at my phone. Not because I regretted hanging up. Because hearing her voice reopened wounds I thought had already healed. A gentle knock came from my office door. Emma stepped inside. You look upset. I'm okay. She smiled softly. No, you're pretending. I laughed quietly. Was it that obvious? She sat across from me. What happened? My ex-wife called. Emma nodded. You don't have to tell me more. I think I do. She waited patiently while I explained everything. When I finished, she asked one simple question. If you met her today, what would you gain? I don't know. What would you lose? I thought about it. My peace. She smiled. Then protect it. I looked at her. You always make things sound simple. They usually are. What if she deserves another chance to explain? Emma shook her head gently. Understanding someone doesn't require reopening the door they already closed. Those words settled deep inside me. That evening I walked home instead of driving. The cool air helped clear my thoughts. I realized something important. For months I had believed I was becoming stronger because my career was improving. That wasn't true. I was becoming stronger because I was finally learning to choose peace over pain. 2 days later Henry invited me into another executive meeting. Everyone looked unusually serious. Henry spoke first. The board has reached a decision. One executive asked. Regarding Langston Holdings. Yes. Henry looked toward me. Victor Langston has officially been removed as CEO. The room remained silent. Another executive added. The board voted unanimously. Henry continued. An interim management team will take control immediately. Someone asked. What about Michael Reed? Henry answered. He'll face criminal charges. The meeting ended shortly afterward. As I walked back toward my office, I stopped beside the large windows overlooking the city. Months earlier I had dreamed about getting revenge. I imagined Victor losing everything. I imagined Olivia regretting every choice she had made. Now that it was happening, I felt something completely different. Not victory. Not satisfaction. Only quiet acceptance. Karma had done everything I once believed I needed to do myself. It had asked nothing from me. It had required no anger. No revenge. No hatred. Only time. My phone buzzed one last time. Another message from Olivia. I'm sorry for everything. If this is goodbye, I understand. I truly hope you find happiness, even if it isn't with me. I read the message once. Then I locked my phone without replying. Some chapters of life don't need another conversation. They only need the courage to turn the page. As I looked across the city skyline, I realized I was no longer waiting for my past to apologize. I was finally ready to keep walking toward my future. 3 months passed after Victor lost control of his company. Life became quieter. My work kept me busy, and every new project reminded me how far I had come. I no longer checked the news every morning. I no longer wondered whether Olivia regretted leaving me. I believed that chapter of my life had finally ended. Then one Friday evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello? Ethan, it's Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I know this is sudden, but Olivia wants to see you. I closed my eyes. I don't think that's a good idea. I told her you'd probably say that. Then why are you calling? Because she's leaving the city tomorrow. I stayed silent. She said this is the last time she'll ever ask. I looked out the office window. The sun was beginning to set. Where? The old park near your first apartment. The one with the lake. Yes. I took a deep breath. I'll come. An hour later, I parked my car beside the empty park. The place hadn't changed much. The same wooden benches. The same walking path. The same small lake where Olivia and I had once talked about our future. I saw her sitting alone. She looked different. There were no expensive clothes. No designer handbag. No jewelry. She looked ordinary. For the first time in years, she also looked tired. When she saw me, she slowly stood. Thank you for coming. I don't have much time. I know. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally she broke the silence. You look well. I've been doing okay. I'm glad. I nodded politely. She looked toward the lake. I've practiced this conversation 100 times. And? None of those versions seem good enough. You don't have to make a speech. She smiled sadly. I probably do. She wiped away a tear before looking at me again. I was wrong. I stayed quiet. I thought money would solve everything. She laughed bitterly. I thought a bigger house meant a better life. I still said nothing. She continued. Victor gave me everything I thought I wanted. But he never gave me peace. The wind moved gently across the lake. I used to blame you for every struggle we had. Her voice shook. Now I understand that we weren't poor because you didn't love me. She looked directly into my eyes. We were struggling because life is difficult sometimes. I quietly replied. Yes. She lowered her head. I didn't realize that until I lost everything. I folded my hands. What happened after Victor lost the company? He stopped talking to me. She forced a painful smile. When the money disappeared, so did the relationship. I'm sorry. She looked surprised. You are? I wouldn't wish that kind of pain on anyone. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't deserve your kindness. This isn't kindness. What is it? It's humanity. She cried openly now. I destroyed us. You did. I betrayed the only person who truly loved me. I didn't argue. Because it was true. She took one slow step closer. Ethan. Yes? Can we start over? The question hung between us. I looked at the woman I had once imagined growing old beside. Years earlier I would have said yes without thinking. Now, everything had changed. I answered gently. No. She closed her eyes. I understand. I don't hate you. I know. I don't even want revenge anymore. I know. But I can't go backward. She nodded slowly. You've moved on. I'm still healing. She smiled through her tears. I guess healing means leaving some people behind. It does. She reached into her purse and removed something small. It was our old wedding photograph. I kept this. She handed it to me. I thought maybe you'd want it. I looked at the picture. We were smiling. Young. Hopeful. Completely unaware of what the future would bring. I smiled sadly before giving it back. No. You don't want it. I don't need a photograph to remember who I used to be. She looked confused. I'll always remember our good moments. I continued softly. But I don't want to live inside them. She slowly put the picture away. I understand. For a long moment we simply stood there listening to the water. Finally I spoke. You know. She looked at me. For a long time I asked myself why you left. I'm sorry. I blamed myself. You shouldn't have. I thought I wasn't enough. Tears filled her eyes again. You were always enough. No. I smiled gently. I was enough. She covered her mouth as she cried. I just couldn't see it back then. I nodded. Neither could I. She whispered. Will you ever forgive me? I thought carefully before answering. I already have. She looked shocked. You have? Yes. Why? Because carrying hatred hurts me more than it hurts you. She cried even harder. I don't deserve that. Forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. What is it about? It's about the person I want to become. The sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. She took one final step backward. I truly hope you're happy. I think I'm finally learning how. She smiled. I always believed you'd do something great. I laughed softly. You believed that a little late. I know. She wiped away the last of her tears. Goodbye, Ethan. I nodded. Goodbye, Olivia. She turned and walked away without looking back. This time, I didn't watch her with a broken heart. I watched her with gratitude. Losing her had once felt like the end of my life. Now I understood it had been the painful beginning of the man I was always meant to become. As I walked back to my car, I realized something unexpected. The greatest victory wasn't becoming more successful than the people who had hurt me. It was becoming someone who could finally let them go. For the first time in years, My past no longer felt like a weight on my shoulders. It felt like a lesson I would never forget, but one I no longer needed to carry. 6 months passed after my final conversation with Olivia. Life no longer felt like something I had to survive. It finally felt like something I could enjoy. Every morning I walked into Dawson Global Investments with purpose instead of fear. The office that once intimidated me had become a place where my decisions mattered. One Monday morning, Henry called me into his office. "Come in, Ethan." I smiled. "You wanted to see me?" He stood beside the large window overlooking the city. "I've been watching your work. I hope that's a good thing." He laughed. "It is." He handed me a sealed envelope. I looked at it. "What's this?" "Open it." I carefully unfolded the letter. My eyes widened. "Executive Managing Director?" Henry nodded. "The board approved your promotion this morning." I looked at him in disbelief. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." I laughed. "Yes." He walked over and shook my hand. "You earned this." "No." I smiled. "You gave me a chance." "I gave you an opportunity." He pointed at me. "You turned it into success." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Years ago, I had doubted whether I deserved anything. Now someone I deeply respected believed I deserved everything I had earned. As I walked out of Henry's office, Emma was waiting outside. She smiled. "I heard the news." "You already know." My father gets excited when he's proud of someone. I laughed. "I noticed." She hugged me. "I'm happy for you." "Thank you. You've worked incredibly hard." "I couldn't have done it alone." She smiled. "You never had to." That evening Emma and I had dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the river. For the first time in years, dinner didn't remind me of heartbreak. It reminded me that life could begin again. She looked at me. "What are you thinking?" I smiled. "I'm remembering." "The past?" "Yes." "Does it still hurt?" I thought for a moment. "Sometimes." "And today?" "Today it reminds me how far I've come." She reached across the table and gently held my hand. "I'm glad." "So am I." A week later the television in my office showed breaking news. The reporter spoke clearly. Former Langston Holdings executive Michael Reed has been convicted on multiple counts of corporate fraud. The camera changed. Victor walked out of the courthouse surrounded by reporters. Someone shouted, "Mr. Langston, do you regret your business decisions?" He said nothing. Another reporter asked, "Do you accept responsibility?" Still no answer. He entered a waiting car and drove away. Later that afternoon another legal notice arrived. Judge Rebecca Owens had officially closed the remaining corporate disputes surrounding Langston Holdings. The case was finally over. Henry walked into my office carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might want to see this." He handed me the final court document. I read the last page. Then quietly closed the folder. "That's the end." Henry nodded. "Yes." "Strange." "What is?" "I thought I'd feel happier." "And?" "I just feel peaceful." He smiled. "That's better than happiness." "It is?" "It lasts longer." I nodded slowly. "I think you're right." That weekend Daniel invited me to a barbecue. As soon as I arrived, he laughed. "Look who's too important to answer phone calls now." I answered yesterday. After 3 missed calls. I was in meetings. "That's your excuse for everything." We both laughed. He handed me a drink. "I've been waiting to ask you something." "What?" "If you could go back." He paused. "Would you stop Olivia from leaving?" I looked across the yard where families laughed together. Children chased each other through the grass. For a long moment I didn't answer. Finally I smiled. "No." He looked surprised. "Really?" "If she had stayed." I looked down at my hands. I would have remained the same man. "And now?" "I finally know who I am." Daniel nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that." A few days later Emma met me outside the office after work. "Walk with me." "Of course." We walked through the city as the sun slowly disappeared behind the buildings. She smiled. "You've been smiling a lot lately." I didn't notice. I did. She stopped walking. "Ethan." "Yeah?" "I know neither of us is rushing anything." "I know. But I want you to know something." I'm listening. I'm grateful you came into my life. I smiled. I'm grateful you stayed. She laughed. I planned to. As we continued walking, I realized that love felt different now. It wasn't built on promises. It was built on trust. The next morning I sat alone inside the executive conference room. A stack of important agreements waited in front of me. One by one I reviewed every page. When I reached the final document, I picked up my pen. My signature carried more responsibility than ever before. As I signed the last page, I remembered the night Olivia placed her wedding ring on the table and walked away. Back then, I believed my life had ended. I couldn't have been more wrong. Losing everything forced me to discover the strength that had always been hiding inside me. My greatest victory was never becoming richer than Victor. It was never watching Olivia regret her choices. It was becoming a man who refused to let betrayal define his future. An assistant entered the room. Mr. Carter? Yes? The payroll documents are ready. I smiled. I'll sign them. She placed the file in front of me. I looked at the company name. Among thousands of employees was one recently transferred executive consultant. Victor Langston. I quietly signed the payroll approval. Years ago, my wife believed I would never become someone important. She believed the billionaire she chose would always stand above me. Life had written a different ending. Without revenge. Without hatred. Without lowering myself to prove a point. I had earned everything through honesty, patience, and hard work. As I closed the folder, I looked out at the city skyline and smiled. The man who once lost everything had finally found himself. And today, I was the one signing the paychecks of the billionaire my wife once chose over me.